Heavy rain poured from the sky. The wind lashed violently against the trees, and the air felt thick and suffocating. In the heart of the Australian countryside, in a remote area where neighbors barely knew one another's secrets, the Jones family was considered part of the community's fabric. But on a night in May, that perfect image of a happy family vanished, replaced by a scene of horror beyond explanation. A crime no one expected, yet when it happened, it was a catastrophe wrapped in silence. This is the story of the murder of the Jones family. Tom, a man who appeared calm and strong, walked through the field with his daughter Emily, while Lisa, his wife, prepared food inside the kitchen. The family seemed happy. Tom, dark-skinned with dark hair, worked as a farmer on that vast land. With his wife, Lisa, always smiling, and their young daughter Emily. The Jones family represented the traditional image of happiness in a remote country town. But behind that smile, a quiet anxiety was slowly growing. Nothing stays peaceful forever. The walls that once held them together were beginning to crack. Tom returned home late that night, waving his hand angrily through the air as Lisa stood frozen in shock. Emily watched silently from the corner. Voices grew louder, and with time, Tom's anger began to boil over. The tension between him and Lisa intensified. But why? Financial troubles? Fear of the future? Tom was struggling to keep his job as a farmer, while Lisa carried the emotional weight of it all. Gradually, an invisible transformation took place. That night, the anger exploded, and when Lisa stepped in to calm him down, everything spiraled out of control. One of the neighbors noticed that the lights in the Jones house were no longer on. Days passed, and the usual interactions with the family disappeared. No one had seen them leave the house, as if they had vanished completely. One neighbor, Mr. Williams, decided to check on them. He reached the front door and knocked, only to be met with terrifying silence. Driven by concern, he took out a spare key he had and slowly opened the door. The neighbor entered the house cautiously. What he saw was more than just a horrifying scene. Blood covered the floor, and the walls bore the marks of a violent struggle. Nothing inside the house was as it once had been. Chairs were overturned, glass shattered, and furniture lay in chaos. One thing was clear: this was no accident. There was something deliberate about it, something far darker. News of the crime spread quickly. Police arrived at the scene without delay, and investigators immediately began gathering evidence. The bodies were not the only thing they were searching for. There was an eerie presence in the air, something that demanded deeper focus. Was this a premeditated murder, or an act of pure madness? Tom was now at the police station, sitting in the interrogation room, his eyes lost and unstable. Investigators watched him closely, trying to decode his vacant stare. Tom, once an ordinary farmer, had become the center of everyone's attention. He sat in silence, his eyes shining as though he had lost touch with reality. During questioning, he showed a mix of remorse and rage. His words came out broken, tears threatening to fall. Finally, he said the words everyone was waiting to hear: "I couldn't control myself." As the investigation unfolded, it became clear that the tension in Tom's life was not only emotional, but financial as well. Mounting debts, growing pressure, and social isolation made him feel trapped in a cell with no escape. After losing his job and drowning in feelings of failure, he began tearing away everything he could no longer bear, even those he loved most. That night, Tom could endure no more. In a moment of psychological collapse, he drove the knife into his wife's body. He was screaming, believing he was doing something right, but in truth, he was destroying himself, murdering his family with his own hands. Regret tore through him, but by then, death had already arrived. Tom confessed to everything. His mind was lost, and what happened was the result of unbearable psychological pressure. Yet he was clear about one thing. He did not know what he was doing when he killed his family. In that final moment, he had completely lost himself. There was no escape. The murder of the Jones family remains a haunting memory in Australian society. Perhaps the crime was a mixture of fear and failure crime that seemed impossible, yet was devastatingly real. The pain it left behind was profound. In the end, one question continues to follow everyone. Can the human mind truly withstand such pressure? And does a shadow of madness lie within us, or waiting for a moment no one expects? Source: the story is documented in the Australian Police Archives, 2015.